everyone. Okay, so to start, the chapter introduces a new character, Officer Nakase, and I'll say right now, for as fun as this chapter was, and despite giving us a few interesting revelations and plot beats, it did feel mostly like a one-off adventure, not as narratively connected as the other two were, and apparently, as I learned after reading the chapter, this is Nakase's one and only appearance in the manga, which is unfortunate because I do think she had an interesting dynamic with Taro and Shin and how they are the kind of antithesis to each other, yet still learn something from one another in the end. Which, yeah, on that note, the moral of this episode is kind of interesting, is an interesting one in the sense where you have Nakase, who's a hardliner when it comes to rules, regulations, and just the overall idea that any use of violence is unacceptable. Then again, you got basically Taro and Shin, who are examples of people who don't kill, but still use what could be considered violent methods in order to save lives. And while this chapter doesn't do any philosophical deep dive into it, I like how it does still show there is a gray area there that violence, while not acceptable all the time, there are times where violence can be a necessity to protect people, and I feel this is going to be one of the downsides to not having Nakase pop up again is is not being able to explore this idea more from the perspective of someone who is an officer of the law, and just in a more general sense. I did love the just in a more general, like, comedic sense of it. I did like the whole dynamic of basically the Coyote and Roadrunner, the dynamic between Taro and Nakase in this chapter. Um, but with that said, though, this chapter does give a very interesting reveal, which is that Taro's metabolism is kind of absolutely insane. Like, if I'm taking what the chapter is telling me at face value, then if our man like gets in enough cardio during the day, then he loses all the weight, becoming how he used to look in his prime. Then regaining it a day later on a junk food rebound. Like, that is, like, absolutely hilarious in the most absurd way possible. Absurd way possible, and in a certain sense, I feel this is almost like I could be reading way too much into it, but with how this, with, I feel this is the author kind of poking fun at the whole idea of transformations in in shonen, that but 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 presenting something pretty much so mundane as, like, it's basically other presenting something so mundane as a as weight loss as a transformation. Like, it's kind of I think this is the author's way of saying, yeah, this transformations are kind of ridiculous, so this is my version of a shonen transformation. It's like, but in so, like, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it does feel like he's having a little bit of fun play with, like, a bit of fun play with the whole idea of a shonen transformation with this. And now, but that is to say, but although that is to say, for as hilarious as it is, there is a. I think this also shows to me as well just how much of Taro's appearance actually matters to him. Like, his chubbier self, in a way, is a sort of defense mechanism used to hide his identity and thus protect his family as well. Like, in a weird way, him being this sort of chubby guy is sort of a disguise that he uses to say, I'm not Taro Sakamoto, I'm someone else completely different. And obviously, despite having unfortunate, although the irony is still having a store called Sakamoto's, that kind of completely ruins it. Um, and in a way, I think this also kind of shows it in itself just how debatable it is, like, how much longer that Sakamoto can keep up this facade, given he's already had a run-in with some old colleagues of the Order. And as much as I love the guy, having Shin around also kind of draws more attention to that fact as well, I think. Um, and yeah, outside of that, not much else to talk about with this chapter. As I said, it kept itself relatively self-contained as a side adventure, although I will also say, despite Nakase not appearing after this chapter, I do still like how tight the pacing was of this chapter. There was never a point where I felt like this chapter was boring or dull. It kept things going fairly smoothly from beginning to end. Although it does also highlight what I believe to be maybe a strength of this series, which is the ability to craft the most life-threatening scenarios surrounding the most mundane setups. A simple outing turned into a chase to avoid the authorities, which then evolved further into a hostage situation. Like that escalation, like really made this chapter fun to me. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe from my Twitter, analyst Crunchyroll, by the bell, the subscribe button, and share the video around, guys. Dark Knight Away, signing off. Later, everyone.